This is the M60. It's big, it's noisy, and it's brash. It has to be American. Weighing 47 tons, it's a top speed of 30 miles per hour and a range of 300 miles. And like other successful American tanks, it's so utilitarian and competent, so functional, that it's almost, well, a bit boring. The M60 does exactly what it says on the tin, but it lacks the experimental quirks of its British and German Cold War contemporaries. The reason for this is that unlike the Brits and the Germans, the M60 designers didn't sit down with a blank sheet of paper to redraw what a tank should be. The M60 is an evolutionary descendant of the M48, which is itself a descendant of the M46, which is a descendant of the M26, and it shows. The M60 entered service in 1960, becoming the USA's most numerous MBT during the Cold War years. Over 15,000 were built by Chrysler, and they would be used by over 25 other nations, with many still in service in Egypt, Turkey and Saudi Arabia. The key differences between the M48 and the M60 are specifically a bigger engine in the shape of the Continental V12 twin-turbo diesel, and also a better gun in the form of the British L7 105mm, as fitted to the Centurion and the Leopard 1. But surprisingly, there weren't any great improvements in armour thickness, at least initially. At its thickest point, the armour is 102mm, which is some way short of the 350mm boasted by the Chieftain. But this is another one of those designs with enormous capacity to be modernised and upgraded, and there have been a range of improvements applied to enhance mobility, armour protection and its weapon systems. The first nation to use them in anger were the Israeli forces during the 1973 Yom Kippur War, where they performed well against the Soviet-built T-62. The US would deploy them in significant numbers during Operation Desert Storm in 1991, where they successfully took on the T-72. So don't get me wrong, the M60 is a decent tank. Its long service and combat record speak for itself. It just wasn't as groundbreaking as the Chieftain and Leopard. Let's see how it compares on the track. M60 first impressions, well, the starter procedure is particularly simple and straightforward, certainly the best of the three. Gear changes, semi-automatic gearbox, low and high ratio. I'm not that optimistic that I'll get into high, but maybe on the straight I'll certainly give it a go. The steering is very, very different to any other tank that I've driven before. You have to be really light on the steering, and there is a real tendency to overcorrect until you're used to it. All in all, what can I say? It's a really functional vehicle. Even though the M60 remains in service around the world, its time was up with the introduction of the US's own step-change design, the M1 Abrams. The M60 is a great example of how a progressive system of upgrades can keep a weapons system viable for half a century. And when I say it's a bit boring, I suppose it's only boring in the same way as Sherman is boring. It's a tank that effectively and competently does the job it is designed to do, for which there aren't any major complaints. So if you want to take control of an M60 yourself, check it out in World of Tanks.